Man, I picked a bad month to do a big themed event. This makes 2 pieces of huge anime news in as many weeks that need to be talked about pretty much immediately. And here I thought February was supposed to be slow and boring. So, The Hollywood Reporter just dropped a pretty interesting article about Crunchyroll, their business history, and their future plans. And, most importantly, the fact that they've contributed over $100 million in royalties to the anime industry. This is huge news, because it undercuts one of the major pillars of the pro-piracy camp in the anime community. For a long time, one of the biggest talking points of people who argue that it's okay to pirate anime has been a lack of transparency from Crunchyroll and other companies in regards to how much they actually pay creators, which pirates claim to mean they're not paying them anything. Now, if you have 2 brain cells to rub together, it's not hard to understand why a streaming platform wouldn't want to share a breakdown of their licensing deals. It's the same reason that I don't openly disclose how much money I make from sponsorships. Not because I don't want to tell you guys where my money is coming from and where it's going, but because that would directly hurt my ability to negotiate better deals in the future. Say, for example, I've got a deal with the Fidget Spinner Corporation, which pays $300 a video because I set up the deal when I had 10,000 subs. I want to set up a new deal to promote a competing product, Tide Pods, but because I now have 450,000 subs and it will reach a much wider audience, I want to get paid $800,000 for that video instead. If it's public knowledge that I make $300 for every Fidget Spinner video, then Tide is going to tell me they won't pay any higher than, say, $350 for a Tide Pod ad, and I'll have to take it, which really sucks because I need that 800 grand to pay for the chemo to treat all the cancer that analogy just gave me. Likewise, Tide isn't about to tell me that they paid Gigax $16 million for a 30-second spot, because that's naturally going to make me want to ask them for more than I otherwise would. And in the case of streaming sites like, say, Crunchyroll, it's worse than potentially having to shell out as much money for In Another World with My Smartphone as they did for the SAO license, because making their rates publicly known tells competitors, on average, what they're willing to pay for shows and what their upper limit is for buying licenses. Which would mean that a big company like Amazon could comfortably outbid them for popular shows by just enough that they couldn't fight back. It would put them in an untenable position. No sensibly run company is ever going to kneecap itself by giving away that kind of information, and for a while now, pirates have been holding streaming platforms to that unreasonable standard as an excuse to not pay for things. This article finally puts a stop to that. At $10 million a year, it is no longer possible to reasonably argue that paying for Crunchyroll doesn't support the anime industry. The animators themselves are unfortunately a different story, but fixing that's going to require a lot of work on the ground level in Japan, and right now it's just good to know that some extra funds are going toward the industry, and that in the future the West can maybe influence things in a positive direction. But that doesn't mean that pirates are just gonna stop. In fact, they're already finding new reasons to pretend that this money just doesn't matter, because this was never about ethical principles or competition or any of the other stuff that these people bang on about. It's always been about entitlement, plain and simple. Pirates just don't feel that they should have to pay for their entertainment, and they perform some Olympic caliber mental gymnastics to justify that. There is no good reason to pirate anime. A lot of people like to pretend that there are, but today, while I don't think it's going to make a lot of people change their ways, I'm going to break down why each of the other major arguments for piracy is also total bullshit. Okay, well, actually, before I dive into that, I do want to clarify something very quickly. There is exactly one, good reason to pirate anime, and that's if the show or movie that you want to watch isn't legally available in your country. If you want to pay license holders for anime and they're just not giving you the opportunity to do so, well, that's on them. Though, obviously, if you want to watch shows that are legally available in your country, even if they just have 1 or 2, you should support your legal options so that they can grow. And on that note, I think that if you own an anime on DVD or Blu-ray and would like to have it in a more convenient digital format, then you are absolutely within your rights to copy or download it. If the rights holders aren't providing a convenient digital option for you to pay for, again, that's on them. And that's as good a jumping off point as any for talking about one of the most egregiously misused quotes in the history of internet discourse. Piracy is almost always a service problem. Gabe Newell said that way back in 2011, talking about the rise of Valve's monolithic online PC game store, Steam. And ever since I started decrying piracy in the anime community, I have seen that shit quoted at me time and time again by people justifying why they don't want to pay for simulcasts. The argument is basically, I don't want to steal anime, but I don't like Crunchyroll's service, and a smart person said that that makes it totally okay for me to steal things. Which is, I mean, that's already really stupid, but it's also not what Gabe Newell was saying. Newell was specifically talking about how most global piracy is a result of regional delays and inconvenience. Before Steam, pirates were the only people offering games worldwide 24/7 for instant download, while legal customers were forced to wait months, sometimes years, for localizations and go to physical stores to pick up their games. Steam changed that dynamic and turned the high seas of Russia into a very profitable market in the process. Now, here's the thing. Crunchyroll and other streaming platforms have already solved the service problem. It used to be that anime came out 6 months to a year late outside Japan, often sold at high prices in limited quantities, and only in specialty stores or at conventions, and a lot of stuff never made it over at all. With simulcasting, we get almost every anime day and date with its release in Japan at a reasonable price sent instantly to our homes. And that has caused anime piracy to decline in the exact same way that game piracy did when Steam became a thing. Which is to say, in regions where simulcasts are available, piracy is way down, but not gone entirely. Some people just don't want to pay for games. Well, that and some people want to avoid harmful practices like invasive DRM, but it's possible to pay for games and mod those problems out, and yeah, game piracy is still a bit more complicated. And anime pirates would argue that what they do is as well, but that doesn't really hold water. Despite the fact that streaming platforms have made anime cheaper, more convenient, and more accessible than ever before, there are people who will still argue that they're not good enough. That because their selection isn't all-encompassing, their translations aren't always up to par with fan subs, and their video quality is supposedly low, that these platforms aren't worth paying for at all. Thus, they're not stealing for the sake of stealing, they're voting with their wallets. None of those points really hold up to scrutiny, though. Legal streaming platforms have smaller content libraries and worse subtitles largely as a consequence of being legal. Every single series that they have has to be licensed, which costs money. Plus, some older shows like Evangelion and Love Hina are stuck in licensing limbo and aren't available anywhere. So right off the bat, there's a monetary obstacle preventing any platform from truly having everything. And that's not even factoring in the issue of exclusivity. Having platform exclusives drives sales for these companies in much the same way that Mario sells Nintendo consoles, Uncharted sells PlayStations, and Xbox has no games. And no matter what some people may argue, it would be very, 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 very stupid to give up that competitive advantage. Exclusivity has been a core part of the entertainment business since basically its inception. Movie theaters have been competing this way for almost a century. You better believe that which theater in town had Wizard of Oz was more important than which one had comfortable seats or better popcorn. And going back to the 1600s in London, the Globe Theatre was a success because Shakespeare's plays played exclusively there. Unless everything about copyright and intellectual property changes overnight, and you could definitely make a good argument that maybe it should, exclusivity is not going to go away. You may not like it, but the content is the product, not the service. You wouldn't expect to be able to play Mario on your PlayStation, and you shouldn't expect to be able to get all of the anime in one place. It just doesn't work that way. And while it sucks that you have to pay for multiple streaming services to watch all the shows, it's not really reasonable to expect anything else from any company that's obeying the law. Unless that company has enough money to buy every license, and in that case, it would be a monopoly, which would be a lot worse for us as consumers. The subtitle issue is also something inherent to legal options, though that's a bit more complicated. Crunchyroll's in-house translation team is by and large pretty good at what they do. They're comprised largely of former fansubbers after all, but they're not always allowed to do what they do, because sometimes Japanese license holders have specific demands for translation that streaming sites are legally required to follow. Sometimes they even submit their own subtitles, which have to be used. Other YouTubers and articles have gone into more detail on this, but again, it's something that will be an issue for any streaming platform that has to work with Japanese licensors. Believe me, speaking from experience, they can be a real pain. There are exceptions to this. It's unclear why Pop Team Epic is so much better on HiDive than it is on Crunchyroll, for instance, but by and large, legal platforms don't have as much freedom with their translations as fans do. Not that it matters, because most of the pirate sites just use Crunchyroll's subtitles anyway. So, if the subtitles or anime selection need to be absolutely perfect for you to ever consider paying for a legal service, you're straight up never going to pay for a legal service. And while I'm sure there are people with this stance who just don't understand that, a lot of pirates just use these principles as an excuse. The low video quality argument does seem a bit more reasonable, since Crunchyroll's player hasn't always been the best, and they did temporarily dramatically lower the bitrate of their video library a year ago, but that turned out to be a mistake made in an effort to improve their encoding infrastructure rather than something they did to make more money. And aside from those few weeks in March, the notion that legal streaming quality is inferior or even equal to that of pirates has been objectively untrue for a long time. Because not only is their player better and steadily improving, they're also working with better source videos. Legal streaming platforms get raw footage directly from anime producers. Illegal sites, meanwhile, tend to source their footage from RIP TV broadcasts or web rips sometimes, which are always going to be of inferior quality due to broadcast compression, and which often aren't even a full 720p. Some of Crunchyroll's older videos are still poorly encoded, but their newer releases are all markedly better than the alternatives. I had to spend a lot of time looking at footage from a place further than the universe for my recent What's in an OP on the series, and particularly with fast-moving shots in the OP, the difference between Crunchyroll footage and TV rips is night and day because of the way that fast-moving video is compressed when it's broadcast. The downloaded raw episodes I was looking at, and especially the illegal streams using those same sources, are fuzzy, with lots of compression artifacts and missing details. Hell, the video players of the site that shall not be named are so bad that you can't even read their terrible watermark in fast-moving shots like this. Now, I am not saying that legal streaming sites are the definitive, best-looking way to watch anime. Blu-ray is always going to look better. Sometimes the early versions of episodes sent to Crunchyroll have extra errors. Just look at Yuri on Ice. And depending on the stability and speed of your internet connection, you may get better playback quality from a downloaded title, which is why it's very important for Crunchyroll and sites like them to adapt the Netflix model and let you download videos as soon as possible. With that said, if quality's a concern for you, illegal platforms aren't going to give it to you, at least not with the timeliness, reliability, and convenience of the legal options. And well, look, I could keep going down a list of complaints that people have about Crunchyroll, Netflix, Funimation Now, HiDive, and every other platform under the sun for the next hour, some of which are legitimate problems that need to be improved, but that ignores the bigger underlying problem of this whole mentality, namely the idea of voting with your wallet in the first place. Whenever I bring this topic up, I hear ad nauseum that people don't care about my moral argument for supporting the anime industry. That, as consumers in a free market, it's their right to choose the service that most benefits them. But Hug Animu isn't part of the free market. They're a criminal organization leeching off of it. They don't compete with the legal streaming platforms, they just steal from them and sell their product at a lower price with the same profit margin because they didn't have to pay for it. Okay, look, say I really don't like Best Buy's layout and customer service, but I want to buy a $2,000 4K TV. So instead of buying the TV from them at that price, I buy it for $300 from a hairy guy who found it after it fell off the back of a truck. Have I voted with my wallet and supported a superior competitor there? Of course not. All I've done is pay a thief to steal a TV. Jimmy Kissy-Face Figgis doesn't have to worry about upfront costs like buying and shipping inventory, and he can hold his stock in a cheapo storage locker forever, so he can make as much as a legit retailer or more while selling the product at a fraction of the price, and even driving it straight to your house for free. Hell, that even helps him case the joint for when he robs you later. And yeah, even that part of this metaphor tracks, since pirate sites can data mine you and infect your computer with spyware and viruses using their invasive ads. But putting aside the stupid risks that you put on yourself when you use these sites, let's be clear here. Hug Animu would not be able to exist as it does without the legal streaming platforms providing them the content. Before Crunchyroll, we did not get every single anime the same day it aired in Japan, not even through fan subbers. Sure, really popular shows with huge fan followings like Naruto would get almost simultaneous fan sub releases, but they were the exceptions, not the rule. Western otaku could wait weeks, even months, for fan sub projects of more niche shows to get caught up, and some shows didn't generate enough interest to get translated or finished at all. There was no pirate site that had it all because it all wasn't available, not in English anyway. The only reason that every single show gets translated now is that Crunchyroll proved there was a market for it. Fan passion just doesn't get niche content translated. Economic incentives do. And while pirate sites definitely make a lot of money, they don't make enough to stay profitable if they suddenly had to pay a huge team of translators to subtitle every single show as quickly as possible. Some people have suggested that anime fans should stop paying for streaming platforms altogether to force them to innovate, which is really absurdly stupid. And here's why. If that happened and the legal sites started running low on funds, they would start reducing their acquisitions to just the most popular series. And on the pirate sites that everyone thought they were so clever to use instead, pretty soon every niche title would start coming with Google Translate subs. Because as much as pirates would like to convince you that you're just paying for a service with these streaming platforms, you're also buying the content and all of the work that goes into translating it for you. And if people stop buying it, the content stops coming. That's how it works. Supply follows demand. Economics 101. And that's what this boils down to, an economic argument, not a moral one. If the anime you seek out and watch is worth your time, it's also worth your money. And you should pay with it, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it directly contributes to bringing over more for everyone else to enjoy. When someone says, I don't want to pay for legal streaming services, they're not just saying, I should be entertained for free, or animators should work for me for free. What they're really saying is, every anime fan who does pay for these services should subsidize my leisure time. I deserve that. And I don't care how they spin or try to justify that, it makes them an asshole. Piracy is theft. It's theft from creators, it's theft from distributors, and it's theft from regular people like you and me. It's petty theft, but it's still theft. And look, I know that I'm not going to convince most of the people doing the stealing to stop stealing with this video. That is not my goal here. I'm just trying to stop them from pretending it's something it's not. They're not on some righteous moral crusade, they're not fighting industrial stagnation and corporate greed, they're not geniuses who've beat the system, and they're not gonna fix the anime industry by suddenly not paying for streaming platforms. They're just a bunch of kids who never got past the misconception that cartoons are something they get to watch for free. So yeah, that's all of my thoughts on this subject, and while normally now is the time when I'd be asking you guys to leave a comment, I somehow feel like I don't need to do that, and it's just gonna happen anyway. While you're down there though, don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video, the dislike button if you disliked it, and hit the subscribe and notification bells if you want to catch every video from Mother's Basement as it goes live from now until the end of eternity. And if you are the type who likes to support creators, hey, I've got a Patreon that you can support right now at patreon.com/mothersbasement. These people whose names are on screen right now have done it, and they are just fantastic human beings who will help me weather the storm that this video is sure to bring upon me. Now, if you want to hear me talk about piracy some more, click here for a video where I break down the earnings of the biggest pirate site, or click here for a contentious debate about whether or not it's okay to support bad people who create good content. I'm Geoff Thu, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.